Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 15, Episode 2. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here this Friday. Steelers Nation, Dave, day one of training camp in the books on Thursday. And I'm guessing by the time people listen to this, day two is underway or about to be wrapped up for the team's second practice at St. Vincent College in Latrobe, PA of 2024. Quick programming note, Dave and I are recording this on Thursday evening around 8 p.m. Eastern time because I'm off at camp here Friday morning. So that'll be the general trend through the Monday, Wednesday, Friday regular Terrible Podcast. But all that out of the way, Dave, welcome back to camp. It's a great time of year.
Absolutely. So glad to read that first training camp diary of yours and see those tweets come through the Twitter machine and, you know, all of the above. So, and also I must admit, I think you enjoyed it as well too. Those early starts sure seems like we have a lot less stress in the late afternoon. I'm a fan of those already, and it's just been one of them. So really like that aspect. And man, you were back home. You were back home from Latrobe when?
Time's running together. It was early. It was, I don't even know what time of practice. 12:15, 1 o'clock.
Yeah, it was before. I tell you, it was way before noon out here in Vegas. That's for sure. So anyway, we have a little bit to talk about, and obviously, you know, with us doing the Thursday night special edition podcast recapping, you know, Thursday's training camp practice. There's going to probably be a little bit of carryover into here, but we're trying to make a conscious effort of not overflowing too much of that. You know, let that thing be a standalone. So if people really want to concentrate on what happened at training camp, they can go listen to that. But, you know, there are going to be storylines and certain things that we talk about in the regular podcast shows that happen during training camp. So just kind of laying the groundwork of what we're trying to do and really have tried to do in the past when it comes to regular episodes of the podcast as opposed to special editions.
Right. So if you want the full daily dive on what happened at training camp, be sure to listen to episode 1 that went up on Thursday of the special edition of the Terrible Podcast. And we'll have one for the Friday practice a little bit later in the day. But Dave, like you said, there will be overlap. Let's just start quick general note here. Injury situation for Pittsburgh again Friday morning before practice kicks off the second practice of training camp. Russell Wilson, the top story, woke up Thursday, calf tightness, wanted to practice, probably could have practiced. Mike Tomlin made the decision to hold him out as a precautionary measure. Ian Rappaport, NFL Network, saying it's minor, generally a non-issue, but that meant Justin Fields working as QB1 for Thursday's practice had a good showing overall. Of course, we'll be watching Wilson when he returns to the lineup. Don't know when that'll be, today, tomorrow, not quite sure, but that is the top storyline right now. Wilson sideline for the moment, Fields quarterback 1.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin said after practice, I just chose to create a little misery for him in the offensive unit. So, okay, I understand he doesn't, you know, he doesn't have obviously a long or any history with Russell Wilson. So he wants to kind of feel him out, how his body responds to things. Didn't want to, even though Russell Wilson was probably, or it sounds like he was gung-ho to even go out there anyway. Mike Tomlin didn't want to push it. Obviously, Russell Wilson's not, you know, he's on the other side of 30 now. So you probably do have to be kind of careful with those kind of things. It sounds like he's day to day at this point. You know, the good news is it does sound like this, you know, happened overnight with him, and it's obvious because he was not put on the PUP or NFI list or anything like this. So this will just be something to monitor, and we'll see how day to day it really is. If you were to make a guess right now, will Russell Wilson practice on Friday?
I know it's minor. If you'd looked at him in practice, you wouldn't have guessed anything was wrong. It almost felt like a Ben rest day for a moment. I will guess no, but I think he'll be back very soon, if not on Friday.
All right. In the meantime, those other quarterbacks got some work, didn't they?
They did. Justin Fields' first team, Kyle Allen second team, and rookie undrafted free agent John Rice Plumlee third team. There was definitely, as Tomlin alluded to, some misery and some adversity for the offense, some sloppy play, false starts, bad snaps, those kinds of things. But Fields, to the point, I thought had a good practice. The highlight, I think the video's out there. The 7-on-7 big sideline throw to Van Jefferson, who beat Dante Jackson down the left sideline. And I think beyond that, Fields went through his reads. He was efficient. Like, I know the dude has a big arm, and so it's great to see the wow throw downfield, but I like to see that consistency. I thought overall Fields was consistent on target in rhythm in practice, and so that's why I think I really call that a good practice for Justin Fields.
All right. And what about Kyle Allen?
Yeah, I'd have to go back through my notes. It was fine. He threw that in another 7-on-7 rep, that corner route to Pat Fryermuth, who had a pretty productive day overall. Pat Fryermuth did. So yeah, again, a veteran guy. Moment wasn't too big for him. There were some down moments overall. Fields kind of skipped the pass low to Pickens, and I think there were some snap issues regarding Kyle Allen and Zach Frazier trying to get on the same page. But yeah, the quarterbacks were fine.
And I know you haven't counted up your hieroglyphics yet and all like that, your caveman symbols. But if you had to guess about the percentage of snaps that Justin Fields took of all of them today, what would you guess that would be?
Just a guess off the top, because typically I mentioned before they go, there's 12 reps in a team period. They had 3 team periods today. You usually go 4-4-4, first team, second team, third team. There was a bit more mixing and matching. I would say about 40% to half, somewhere in that range for Fields.
Okay, and then about what would you put on Kyle Allen then?
If I give Fields half, then it's probably split evenly between Allen and Plumlee the rest of the way, so 25% each, just some rough math.
Okay, I just had your rough guess on that. I mean, I know you got it in your notes.
Well charted,
yeah. You haven't tallied it up yet. Is all.
All right, so Mike Tomlin, post-practice press conference, anything else pertinent that he said that maybe I missed? I was kind of getting back from Latrobe.
I just said that Justin Fields was excited about the opportunity to lead the first group out of the huddle and take charge today. He says, we're not painting with a broad brush just yet or making too many judgments. It was a good afternoon. Talked about the importance of communication during the first few days of practice. And then as far as the injury updates go, he said nothing else that we hadn't spoken of yesterday, meaning, Patterson, Lowry, and obviously Holcomb. He did, I guess, call it a soft tissue with Patterson and Lowry. We obviously knew Patterson was a hamstring, and Lowry, you would think, is probably that pec, as well too, although Mike Tomlin does not come out and say it's a peg. Mm-hmm. He says, other than that, we'll see what this evening tells us from an availability standpoint in terms of things that may have happened in practice today, meaning Thursday. So we'll just have to see who rolls out there and is able to go on Friday.
The only thing I noted that may be an injury, may not be, was defensive lineman and reserve Willington Prevlian. He was not in individual drills with the other D lineman. He ran some gassers on the middle field away from the other D lineman. He had a helmet on later in practice in a special team session, but really wasn't asked to do much. It was the punt rush team, but you're not actually really rushing. You're just kind of giving the look to the punt team, to the up back. So we'll check that. I know that's not exactly the most urgent news. I don't think anyone else even tweeted about Willington Prevlian not really working, but I'll check him tomorrow or Friday.
If you did tweet that name out, you probably get one of those GIFs, one of those animated GIFs with a who.
That's basically what the response was. It was like, who's this guy? Is this a real guy? He's a real man.
Let's see. Omar Khan had a presser later in the afternoon. He did kind of quickly hit on a couple of guys dealing with injuries there as well too. He says in relation to Lowry and Holcomb and Patterson, we're going to be smart with those guys and strategic. And that's not to say that those are long-term or short-term. We've just got to be smart. He says, similar to Russell Wilson. I'm sure you guys will ask me about Russ. He said, we're going to be smart and strategic. But when those guys get on the football field, there's a lot of football ahead of us, blah, blah, blah. Is strategic the new buzzword?
I guess so.
He used it, I think, twice within there. But anyway, a lot, day to day on Russell Wilson, and obviously we'll have to wait and see what happens with those guys on the list.
Let's stick with Omar Khan. He had a press conference after practice today, covered a variety of topics. You kind of told me what was the most notable quote. To me, was probably about Cam Hayward, but where did you kind of take Khan's press conference?
Oh, man, I love anytime they talk about contracts or non-contracts or money or cap or anything like that. As far as Cam Hayward goes, he says, we think, let's see, I'm not going to talk about the specific negotiations, but, I think Cam Hayward has a lot of football ahead of him still, and I'll leave it at this. I expect him to be here for years to come. So read into that what you will. He talked about Najee, nothing, obviously nothing doesn't sound like anything close or even near anything going on right there. But he did say that when it comes to Najee, I can tell you we think the world of Najee, just because, and it really is kind of a repeat of what he's said earlier in the offseason. Just because that option was not exercised doesn't mean that he doesn't have a future here. He represents us well, yada, yada. Guys know what he's like as a football player. He's a great football player. He's great to have in the building. So, I still see a future with Najee from that perspective there. I don't think he got into look, nothing sounds like when it comes to Hayward, Pat Freiermuth, and even Najee Harris, if you want to lump him in there, it doesn't sound like anything's going to be announced tomorrow, but you got 40 something days. And he did say, though, in the opening, what did he say? You guys will probably ask about some contracts, and I won't talk about any specific negotiation, but as you guys are aware, this is usually an active time for us, and there's nothing to report right now, but if something comes together, we'll make sure you guys are aware. So he does admit that we all should know that this is usual, a normal time of the offseason for them to get things done with contract extensions, if they are indeed going to get them done. He did, and it's not a surprise, he was asked a little bit about the quarterback situation and the contracts there. I don't think, are there really any people listening to this show that were thinking there was a high probability of either Russell Wilson or Justin Fields getting a contract extension this offseason? I mean, I know we've talked about if they could or not, but it does, from what Omar said, it sounds like that's going to be on the back burner until after the season, until they see how those two guys play.
Agreed. And for what it's worth, Jerry Dulac, I believe on Wednesday, said no intentions, no plans the Steelers have right now to extend the contracts of Wilson or Fields before the year begins. I'm good with that. Let's see these guys play. Let's see how they look and use this year's information gathering to determine who you want to hitch your wagon to, if anyone. I know there's a risk in that, and it's a little anxiety ridden when there's no quarterback under contract next year besides the rookie John Rice Plumlee. But I think it'd be foolish to really commit big money. The one thing that Pittsburgh has done well in the post-Ben era, despite all the kind of missteps in trying to find the next franchise quarterback, which of course can be extremely difficult to do, but one thing they've done well is they have not committed a bunch of money to one guy that's really locked them down and hurt them financially or forced them to continue to keep a guy that probably shouldn't be their starter. So I will give them that low bar of credit for that at least.
Right. He did, he was talked about in so many words. Boy, you got a lot of cap space for this time of year. And yeah, technically for this time of year, at the start of camp, for this team to have, around $16 million in available salary cap space, it is not usual for this team. But he did say in so many words that, they had an opportunity to create cap space earlier in the offseason. Obviously, that was the Alex Highsmith restructure. And that, as we've talked about, happened a lot earlier than what I thought it would. And it just feels like they were, and Omar said as much, got themselves in a position in case they were able to strike a deal for whoever, they would have more than enough cap space to accommodate a contract. At the time that, obviously that they restructured that Highsmith contract, they didn't have the room to do pretty much anything there. So, and he did say, look, as far as the cap and making plans and all like that, they do this short term, midterm, and long term. And I think we've heard Colbert even talk about that in the past when discussing the cap and all like that. A lot of people will try to make a big deal about that 16 million, but as I do in my cap breakdowns and all like that, a lot of that technically is already spoken for. However, if you get something done with Cam Hayward, as I've stated, you can free up another $8-9 million depending on what the structure is there. That way, obviously, if you get something done with Freiermuth, his cap number is going to increase a little bit. Same would go for Najee if you get something done with him by chance. But and then you obviously, if you get you need more cap space towards the end of the preseason. You can go to Minkah Fitzpatrick and do the restructure there and free up, some extra money there. So I wouldn't put too much onus on the calendar of this team having, $16 million in cap space, other than the fact that it's unusual, an unusual amount for this time of year. And as I just put out on Twitter before we got on this thing, this team is still, it's still going to spend some cash, Alex. I don't see, and look, my predictions are my predictions, and it's just, my nerdness of following this team and trying to project and all like that. It doesn't mean a damn thing in the long run. It's just a projection, and especially with this being the first year of the new 3-year cycle and all like that. But I will admit, I will be surprised if they don't spend at least another $15 million in additional cash for this offseason here. A good chunk of that would go towards, I feel a signing bonus for Pat Freiermuth. And I think in that post several weeks ago, I said I'm expecting to spend about $20 million more in cash. So there's only one way to do that, and it's giving more money in the actual year, whether it be contract extensions and signing bonuses, or going out there and paying somebody outside the organization. That's the only way those can happen.
Sure. Let's back up to the 3 players that have been at least discussed and speculated about extensions with Harris, Freiermuth, and Hayward. I'll say this on Hayward, and maybe I'm reading too much into it, and I understand that Omar Khan has gotten the GM speak thing down pretty well, but for him to be flat out and say that I expect Cam Hayward to be a Steeler for years to come, that's a pretty strong phrase. And I know when it was with Deontay Johnson, it sounded like he at the combine, they were working on an extension, and then he gets traded a week later. But this is Cam Hayward. This is your veteran leader, face of the franchise. What he means, to the team. You're not going to BS around. I think a guy like Cam Hayward, at least I wouldn't hope so. So to me, that's actually a pretty strong indication that they are going to get something done with Cam Hayward. Now, when and what exactly that structure looks like, those are all the tricky things, of course. But to me, you don't say that about the leader if you're just kind of just blowing smoke. Yeah,
I agree. And look, my expectation all offseason was that they'd get Freiermuth and Cam Hayward done at a minimum.
Okay. I was kind of on the fence with Hayward. I'm now in the camp of I think something does get done.
Yeah. Now, do they want to give them the additional new cash in 2000? That's got to be where all the talk's about, right? The guarantees past 2024, if any, and probably roster bonus structure in the additional 2 years and dates on those, and then how much new money, if any, above the 16 million that he's scheduled to earn in 2024. Might he get, and then also too, what's the rush right now? That thing for all practical purposes could be done on paper right now. Don't you want him to, get through a little bit of training camp and all?
I don't know. If you had an agreement to the deal, you agree to the deal. I mean, I think you don't wait around when we're all in agreement and just for the injury standpoint. Because he get hurt the day after he signs the contract. Sure. You get a whole regular season to go through.
Sure. But what about this as well, too? Maybe they don't know how much cap space they actually want to free up by doing his deal, because it would make a difference in the amount of signing bonus if you want X amount freed up as a result of his deal in cap space in 2024. maybe it depends on what after they get these other deals done or not done to determine how much the signing bonus is.
Sure, that's possible. I mean, I can buy that. I can buy a scenario where it's not done. They want to see, do they trade for somebody? Do they make a move late that impacts the cap? Sure, that is plausible.
Right. So anyway, two of these guys are going to get done. Freiermuth and Cam Hayward's going to get done. I believe that in my heart of hearts.
Freiermuth really didn't have much of an update when asked about the contract situation, but he said he was optimistic and that he loves Pittsburgh and wants to stay. I do think that gets done before camp breaks. I'll go that far and say they get an extension done before, I guess that'd be August 14th, the final day of training camp.
And we have kind of buried the lead here. All three of those guys were on the field practicing, so no hold-ins.
No hold-ins. Yeah, I discussed that in the training camp episode. So again, will they be, when the pads come on, it's live, live sessions and you can tackle. Do they limit Najee? That would make sense. Even if he had an extension, make sure he's healthy, and we'll see what Cam's posture is at that point. But all three working today. I don't want to beat a dead horse about Najee, but Khan again asked and pressed. We understand that you think it's the right decision, and the best decision was to decline Harris's option. But why did you think that was the best decision? And Khan gave a total non-answer.
Yeah, he's getting good at saying nothing. They all do. He says, yeah, I called Najee when we made the decision. We just felt at the time it was right decision for the club, and I'll keep the conversation Najee and I had between us. But I can tell you, we think, and we already read off this quote. You think?
What did he say after that though? Because it was a follow up, right? That said, okay, we understand you think that was the best decision. Why was that the best decision?
And why they chose not to pick up his option. There's different steps and layers in making those decisions, and we evaluated where the team was, and we just said right now, let's hold off.
Yeah. So nothing, a complete pivot there, but. Anyway, regardless, it's decline. I don't expect the extension to happen with Najee this summer. We visit things after 2024.
And they tried to pin him down on trading a wide, might you still consider trading for a wide receiver? And did you, in fact, make a play for Brandon Ayuk? And, I think in a couple of those answers there, he says, well, there's 32 GMs and we all talk and we all have conversations, and believe it or not, it's still early in the process here, so I'm not going to talk about one specific player, but we all talk among ourselves, ha ha, he he, and I imagine they do. Sure. You're not doing your job if you're not. Hey, what you got going on there? You got to, what you going to do with Ayuk and all like that. And I think he was careful too to not come out and address Brandon Ayuk's name, because there's probably some tampering things there, on top of it there. At its core, do we think that the Steelers have at least explored whomever, wide receiver wise, whether it had been Ayuk, Courtland Sutton, by the way, if people missed it, he's redone he's got him a little raised with the Broncos, so he's not going anywhere. You wouldn't think at this time not that people were thinking he was going to go anyway, but obviously he was a good guy we had a lot of conversations about. But you don't free up all that cap space with the idea of signing three guys to veteran minimum benefit contracts, right?
Yeah, he didn't make room for whoever that would have been, Quez Watkins or Scotty Miller,
right?
And restructure Highsmith.
In short, there was probably conversations with other teams about a wide receiver. He's just not going to tell us how deep those went.
Sure, which I'm not surprised by. Not Khan's first rodeo. Yeah, I think they did try to talk, and they may continue to talk. I can't rule that out. I will say I thought that Courtland Sutton might be that guy, that he'd be the most likely candidate to be traded. And as you said, that's out the window. He reported to camp. He got a raise. He's going to stay in Denver. No chance he's getting moved now, of course. So if not Sutton and it's not Sutton, then we're back to Ayuk. Debo, if Ayuk were to get a long-term deal done with San Francisco, and then lower tier names like, I'll go back to Alec Pierce and Treylon Burks.
All right. He was asked about could a guy like Patrick Peterson find his way back, and he says, yeah, we don't close the door on anything. The old, we don't close the door. You don't know how the rest of camp and the rest of the season is going to go. Obviously, injuries come into play and different things happen, and you've got to be prepared. So I'm willing to bet they have not deleted Patrick Peterson's number from the Rolodex or the phone.
And working slot corner on Thursday was safety Deshaun Elliott. Interesting note there. I was some 3 safety looks with DeMonte Casey and Minkah Fitzpatrick playing safety and Elliott over slot, and also rookie undrafted free agent Beanie Bishop Jr. I imagine these guys will rotate. One thing I forgot to note in the training camp special edition episode was that I did not see Cam Sutton take a team rep today. Maybe I missed it. He was out there. He wasn't an individual. He was in special team sessions. I did not see him on the field, though, in the 11-on-11 period. I know Mike Tomlin said that his looming suspension would not impact his reps this summer, but from what I could gather, really no team reps for him on Thursday.
All right. Well, you can hyper-focus on that on Friday.
That I will do. All right. Anything else from Omar Khan? I think that's basically hit the big stuff from him.
He was asked about Broderick Jones again and reminded about the comments that he said that, he potentially be the starting left tackle at some point. And he says, I'm not going to sit here and tell you when that's going to happen, but he was a left tackle in college, and he was drafted with as a left tackle. And I would say that at some point down the road, I'm not going to predict when or what year, but he's a talented player.
I mean, he worked right tackle on day one. It is day one. It was, status quo from the tackles. Dan Moore, first team left tackle. Broderick Jones, first team right tackle. Troy Fautanu, second team right tackle. I'm sure there'll be some shifting, but that language really hints that, there's a good chance that Jones will play right tackle this year then.
All right. So for how long was that? Almost 20 minutes for him, Omar Khan, his presser?
I think so, right around there.
All right. The biggest takeaway, I think, from the whole thing was him saying, have no doubt that Cam has a lot of football left in him, and basically, expects him to. I'll leave it at this. I expect him to be here for years to come. That's probably the money quote from the 20 minutes.
It is the biggest quote, and to me, maybe the only quote that I took away that really had me think anything different after I listened to Omar Khan speak.
All right.
What else from here, Dave? Let's talk about George Pickens. First day of training camp. I didn't witness it. It got reported by Ray Fittipaldo from the Post-Gazette. This happened, I'm guessing, a bit later in practice on the sideline. I'm so heading my notes, and then, of course, watching on the field. I can't always catch things that are happening, off to the side. But according to Fittipaldo, there was a what do you want to call it, argument or some sort of incident between Pickens and new wide receivers coach Zach Azzanni, where Pickens got upset about something after Azzanni was trying to correct him and coach him up, and Pickens didn't take too kindly to it, and players had to kind of come up to Pickens afterwards to try to calm him down. So that's the story. George Pickens, day one. How about that?
Specifically, Fittipaldo reported Azzanni and George Pickens got into a heated exchange late in practice when Azzanni didn't like the way Pickens executed his assignment. Pickens didn't take kindly to Azzanni's words. Some of the other receivers approached Pickens after the exchange, but Pickens was visibly upset. So, look, I obviously didn't see it. You didn't see it. Evidently, a few beat writers did see it. Ideally, do you like this stuff to happen? But you got a new coach, and they're probably still trying to new position coach and Azzanni trying to fill each other out. It's obviously not ideal that we're having to talk about this stuff on day one of training camp. But I'm not going to sit here and on the flip side and just sit here and bang on George Pickens. Other than just saying, let's just see if we're having more of these kind of conversations about George Pickens getting upset during training camp, then yes, there is some level of concern there. Once again, it's not ideal that it happens on the first day of training camp, but you do have first training camp official training, even though these guys have worked in OTAs and mandatory mini camp and all. You got a guy in Azzanni that's, as we wrote and you've said several times since he was hired, it's more of a no nonsense kind of more get in your face, I guess, kind of guy, if you will. And there's, there's several reports prior to Azani coming to Pittsburgh stating as much, and receivers even saying as much. And so you're probably getting a little clash of heads, and Azani's probably wanting to at least nip some of this stuff in the bud early in training camp. And, whatever words got said didn't probably get accepted perfectly on Pickens in, and there you have what you have. So it's obviously hard to talk about something that you did not see, and that's where we're at on this. But it has become a story late Thursday night here to some degree, and now we just sit and wait and see if we're talking more about Pickens in this light. He goes out and make a couple plays tomorrow. This will get washed under the bridge real quick,
Sure, I think you framed that really well, Dave. It's notable given Pickens' history and all the stories that came up last year and the Mike Tomlin emergency midweek press conference. Everyone knows the backstory there. But to me, as you said, not going to lose our minds over it or sound off all the alarm bells. We'll watch it going forward. But as I said on the training camp show, when Azani got hired, the title of one of my articles was Zach Azani is the butt kicker Pittsburgh needs. And, it's a young group overall. It's a group that has a lot to prove and guys fighting for spots. And I think they wanted somebody that had a harder edge and was more no nonsense than what Frisman Jackson was. And they really think they found the right guy in Coach Azani, who had those receivers on the field 10 minutes before practice officially began, going through drills, working on ball security, going through the shoots, all that kind of stuff, while everyone else, all the other position groups, were kind of just milling around and waiting for practice to officially get started. So these receivers are coming here to work, and that's what Azani was brought here to do. That's going to create some friction at times between, a guy like Pickens, still young and probably a bit opinionated from times, and all those kinds of things. But I think it's probably the best thing for Pickens and best thing for this team to have a guy like Azani push these guys and push Pickens specifically.
I've already gotten some tweets since we had to post about it, and people saying, well, you guys already creating drama, us meaning Depot and all. Look, it's not even our damn story, we just, we're just passing along, how can you not pass along this kind of stuff? And then, it's Ray Fittipaldo went on 93.7 later in the evening to talk about it. I mean, people are talking about it, and we are going to talk about this kind of stuff here. Now, here's the hoping that we don't have to talk about George Pickens in this kind of light much, if any, moving forward into the summer.
Yeah, we're going to mention this and mention many other stories. We didn't lead with this. This is a half hour into the show. We covered a bunch of other topics, but it's going to be a component of it specifically because of the backstory with Pickens. So again, we're not freaking out. It's worth pointing out, and it could be a redemption thing. By the end of camp, those two guys are buddy, and Azani talks about how much growth the Pickens has shown, and Pickens thanks Azani for coaching him hard. That's the whole goal here. Is Azani just coaching him hard to make him the best player? Because Pickens is so darn talented. The ceiling is so sky high. He made, I think, strides and steps as a sophomore last year. There's a chance to have a really impressive 2024 season for him as the true number one receiver with a better offense, better quarterback play. And if that happens, this dude could get paid this time next year. So it's all tough love. It's all love from Coach Azani, and it's all to make Pickens the best player possible.
All right, where to from Pickens now?
Let's see. I think the bulk of it overall. Any other Steelers stories that are kind of floating out there? I feel kind of removed from the day news whenever I'm got my head in my notes and writing up the practice reports and all those kinds of things. Anything else that we're really needing to address here?
What do you think about what Broderick Jones had to say that he needed a couple of weeks to sit and watch last year? He said, I feel like I started at the right time. I feel like I needed a couple of weeks to sit and watch and just learn and listen and take everything in before I was able to go out there and do what I do. I feel like me being able to sit down those first couple of weeks really helped me. I really feel like it helped me hone in on my skills. At the end of the day, I feel like it worked out for the best. So now we'll see if they take a similar kind of path with Troy Fautanu.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where if Jones was the week one starter, he'd be sitting here today saying, I'm so glad they started me week one, and that was the best thing for me. And if he sits the way he sat, he says that's the best thing for me. So, I mean, I get it because he was a young guy. He was a pretty raw guy coming out of Georgia. So there probably was value in him sitting a little bit and kind of, still getting reps in practice and watching the game mentally and learning how to game plan and prepare how to watch tape, that kind of stuff. So I can see his point, but I think it's one of those things where no matter what path he took, he would have said that it was the best thing for him.
Just a positive dude trying to make the best of whatever he's told to do. Team player. Boy, I can't wait to see him, whatever side he's on. Really looking forward to that.
And I think that's important just for Jones, because I think there was the photo that Mike DeFabo had after practice of Jones working with Fautanu on their pass sets. And I know Fautanu yesterday when he reported, or Wednesday when they reported, said that Dan Moore had texted him a couple times, I think leading up to training camp, just checking in, making sure he was good. Those are just two really solid dudes. And Dan Moore Jr., I think, is the ultimate teammate, and Broderick Jones to be humble and to help. And these guys, not that Fautanu is really taking Jones' job, but it's still tackle, it's still competition, all that kind of stuff. And for those guys to still help and mentor, I think is really impressive. And they're not terribly, like 35 years old either. I mean, Moore's older, but still in his mid-20s, and Jones is 22, 23. So a lot of maturity, I think, for all those tackles, Fautanu included.
All right, for a little bit of tease, for maybe that people that didn't have time to listen to the training camp podcast, roll down the offensive line groups from Thursday's first training camp practice.
Sure. Let me pull them up here. First team was left to right, Dan Moore Jr., Isaac Sayamalu, Nate Herbig, James Daniels, Broderick Jones. Second team, Dylan Cook at left tackle, Mason McCormick, Zach Frazier, Spencer Anderson, Troy Fautanu. Third team, Devery Hamilton, Tyler Beach, Ryan McCollum, Joey Fisher, and Anderson Hardy. To my knowledge, no moving or shaking during day one, which is pretty typical. That stuff could happen down the line. But the veterans getting the nod here. Herbig at center over Frazier, and Moore over Fautanu, which kept Broderick Jones as first team right tackle.
Dylan Cook didn't play much left tackle last year, did he, in the preseason?
Not in the preseason. I think it was on like 9 snaps or so, I think was the charting on that. He ended up playing more left guard than even left tackle. Predominantly played right tackle. He was a right tackle, I'm pretty sure, in college.
He played 4 snaps at left tackle last preseason. Dylan Cook did. He played 71 at right tackle. He played 26 at left guard. I knew that I knew that he played 3 positions. Mm-hmm. I just couldn't remember how much left tackle. Wonder how much we're going to see Dylan Cook at left tackle during the preseason.
Probably a fair bit, since he's working left tackle today. And as long as Fautanu is working second team, that's going to be at right tackle. That's where they're playing him. And that means Cook's going to be at left tackle. Cook is going to be a second teamer. He maybe plays some left guard, I don't know. But as things stand, he's going to be the left tackle. So that's good for him to get those reps, because he does not have a ton of experience. He played it in camp last year, but probably more so right tackle than left tackle. So good for him to get that work.
I mean, we'll obviously see him at both left and right tackle during the preseason. I would like to think that he'll get more than 4 snaps at left tackle this preseason. Wonder how much guard do you think we'll see him, if any?
They're pretty deep at guard right now, so it might be harder to carve out those reps. Not impossible, and injuries can obviously impact things. And Sayamalu and Daniels probably don't need a lot of preseason time. So yeah, maybe some. I think they kind of threw a bone there late, because that was left guard work was late in camp. Like the last practice in camp last year, they put him at left guard. He got that work in the finale against Atlanta, 20 or so snaps. So maybe that was health kind of thing. Maybe they want to play Kevin Dotson too much to keep him healthy for a trade. You could see some though, but he's a primary tackle, and maybe his ceiling could be that swing tackle role.
Okay, with those 3 groups of offensive linemen there, your jaw didn't drop. You didn't drop your pencil or your waterproof paper or anything, right?
Can't drop the waterproof paper. That is valuable stuff there. No, it was pretty chalk. So we'll just see if this thing, how fluid it is, and don't expect big changes tomorrow. I'd probably expect, or again Friday. I keep forgetting we're recording this here Thursday night. Probably going to be Herbig running first team still, especially with the couple of snap issues that Frazier had. So these things could change, but it's not going to change in overnight.
All right. Who else said anything after practice that was worth a dang?
Let's see. I don't know if anyone else said anything super crazy. Did Fields say anything? He just was happy to get the reps and take
Yeah.
advantage of the opportunity, and pretty standard stuff.
Yeah, he's good in front of camera now. He's learned the game. I like to hear him talk. I think he does a good job. Okay, looking forward, and we really didn't spend a lot of time on this on the camp recap podcast. But you already said you're going to hyper focus on what Cameron Sutton is doing or not doing tomorrow or Friday. What else you got your mind set on making sure to eagle eye in on?
Yeah, the slot corner in general to see if there's more names. I mean, I imagine pretty soon we're going to see Josiah Scott get action, Graylin Arnold get action, and maybe somebody else. I imagine they're going to kind of rotate these things daily overall. In terms of anything else, maybe watch the D-line some more. I thought Darvin Leal popped a little bit today. I think there was that one clip of something that I tweeted out of him making a play in run period for a tackle for loss, beating the block. So that was good. So hopefully that spring buzz can, lead to summer production.
All right. We will recap it all tomorrow evening. Anything else you want to talk about here, or you want to start wrapping things up?
I do think Dante Jackson had a good day. I know I mentioned this in the camp episode. I know that I guess he was the guy that got beat, that fell down on that Van Jefferson catch that Fields threw. I think their legs might have got tangled. He just kind of lost his balance and fell. But I still thought it was a good day for him. He had breakup in team. One of the first throws that Fields had to Pickens, he broke up. And then after getting toasted by Jefferson, he drove on a slant the next play and broke up a pass to Marquez Callaway and have that short-term memory. He's a veteran and he's been beat before by AB in his rookie season, all that kind of stuff. But to get burned the one play and then come back the next, put that one behind him and then make a play, that's probably why you bring that guy in, because he's a vet and knows how to handle himself and make the next play.
All right, that's good to hear. Hopefully he has a strong camp and can secure that other side.
Did Benton talk at all today? Is there anything on Benton or no?
He did, but I haven't had a chance to listen to that myself. I know we have an article or two up about it, but I have not personally got my ears on it just yet.
Should mention some fullback being used as well. Jack Coletto getting some fullback snaps. Same with Connor Hayward and even Darnell Washington. A lot of pistol too. I didn't see any pony today. Keep an eye on that, of course, but a lot of pistol. In this offense, might see some of that with these mobile quarterbacks. All
right, let's answer a couple of emails we got in the machine here from a couple of people here. We'll start with Marcus Perkner. Hi, Dave and Alex, writing in from Austria again. Wow. There's a common discussion that the Steelers keep Isaac Seumalo and let James Daniel walk in free agency. I know you talked about it, that he's got W-E-R. There's a misspelling in here already, but I don't know what he's meaning by this word already. But considering the age of Seumalo, wouldn't it be better option to keep Daniels? He says, if you factor in, they most likely draft a young D-line and let Ogunjobi walk. They can ship his $10 million over, keep that O-line intact, develop a bond together, and let McCormick learn and step in after Seumalo. If he plays 2 more years at that level, it could be a mentor for the young. I guess in so many words here, he's saying, look, he thinks he's seeing that the common discussion is that potentially both Seumalo and Daniels walk off into free agency. He says, but considering the age of Seumalo, wouldn't it be better option to keep Daniels? Whether you, look, Alex has pointed this out. I mean, Daniels is much younger, but also the guard market, is very, very strong right now. And if James Daniels has a year, and look, Daniels has come out and already said he's not expecting a contract extension this offseason. So whether or not it was in our opinion they should sign him this offseason,
it's moot.
Yeah, it doesn't matter at this point, because it doesn't sound like they are. And even if they were to sign him at this point, the way the guard market has gone crazy this offseason, I mean, it'd be pretty pricey to get him done right now.
And I think that's why he's not getting re-signed and why he'll play somewhere else. I don't think Pittsburgh wants to more than double his salary. I like Daniels, probably maybe even overrate him a touch, but he's not going to come back because the market has exploded. Kevin Dotson got paid. Robert Hunt got paid. Landon Dickerson got paid. We just saw Quinn Miners get $20 million per year, 4 years, $80 million, and Daniels is making just under $9 million, I think, on his previous contract. So while he's still in his prime, I don't think Pittsburgh wants to pay that much in that kind of a tax with the way the market has gotten hot. So point taken overall, but I think the market forces is what's leading Pittsburgh to let Daniels in all likelihood walk.
If I'm Daniels and I'm seeing that $16 million per that Kevin Dotson got, that's at least my aiming point.
It's got to be his floor, yeah, because we just saw Miners get more than that, and so usually you want to try to top the last guy. I don't think Daniels is going to ultimately top Miners, but you probably want to at least get above Dotson, and knowing the cap's going to go up next year, again, in all probability, you're trying to get more and more.
And then really the only alternative to that, if you don't get, which they're obviously not going to sign Daniels to an extension this offseason, the only way you prevent him from technically getting to free agency next year would be to put the franchise tag on him. And it looks like right now, because they use offensive linemen as a group, as a franchise tag number, that number's $24.727 million. So almost $25 million to franchise him, according to over cap for the projections right now. They're not, I can tell you right now, they're not going to do that.
Right. No, you might as well just re-sign the guy if you're going to do the franchise tag.
Right.
So I share the concern, though. If Daniels does walk, then are you putting a second-year Mason McCormick, who may have very little NFL experience on Sundays, and just hoping that he can be the guy? I do have that concern. We'll see what happens with Herbig, a fellow free agent, could much more cheaply re-sign, but there's probably going to be a question next year about who that other guard is.
And then, he mentioned Sayamalo. I think it's important to point out that Sayamalo is still under contract for 2025.
Right. They're not both up at the same time.
Right.
And that's important. Now, going to Ogunjobi, if he doesn't have a good 2024, there's a roster bonus due next March. And if he does not play well this year, then I think it's really hard to justify picking it up.
Indeed. He has a $3 million roster bonus due on March 17th. So it's going to be a cut and dry after this season ends, and we're either going to be saying, oh yeah, he's going to be a Steeler next year, or we're saying there ain't no way he's going to be a Steeler next year. If there's any gray in between, it means he's probably going to be out the door.
The only concern would be, what if you didn't get something done with Cam Hayward? Just for whatever reason, you didn't get an extension done, and he's up as well. Then are you letting both your defensive linemen walk?
Well, yeah, that's a good. I don't think we'll get to that. We'll sure. Approach that hypothetical when we get to week one there.
Fair point. All right. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah. I mean, we understand, Marcus. I mean, if you're going to sign any of them, probably would be, Daniels to an extension, but we could sit here and cuss and scream and fight, for Daniels to get a deal done this offseason, but it doesn't sound like it's going to happen at all. Right. Bryce writes in, do you see the Steelers adding another experienced player to this defensive line room before week one of the regular season? Short answer. I mean, look, you do have Lowry on PUP right now, but I'm willing to bet that they think he's going to be off of there sooner rather than later. Short answer to that is, unless it's a veteran minimum contract, that's the only way I see them adding another experienced defensive lineman to this room.
Let the preseason play out, and all these young guys and guys battling, see how they look. Leal, who again had a nice first day, Loudermilk, etc. My guess is they would not add somebody that there'll be enough on the back end to justify keeping a competent six. But that's why you let the camp play out and evaluate your group and go from there.
Number two, who are your sleepers in the safety room, free or strong, that you could see emerging to have a good camp and make the team? There ain't many of them under contract. Bryce, and look, I said after my 53-man roster prediction that if I was to do one thing different, I would have kept one less defensive lineman, and I would have kept one more safety. I kept 4 on there. And the safety that I would have kept in addition to Minka, KZ, and Elliott would be, and Miles Killebrew is more of this, obviously a special teamer. It would be the rookie, So other than that, I mean, who else you got on here? Nate Metters, kind of an underside, more of a strong, I guess.
Yeah, I think he was a corner at UCLA, and then he kicked the safety. I'd have to see what he was playing, stronger, free. They're pretty interchangeable at this point. But yeah, you got 6 safeties on your 91-man roster right now. You got Minkah Fitzpatrick, Deshaun Elliott, Demonte Casey, Miles Killebrew. There's no sleepers there. They're all veterans. You got Ryan Watts, the rookie, and as you said, Dave, Nate Meter. So there really isn't a sleeper. I mean, there's Watts to look at, and How does he make the switch from corner to safety? And really couldn't tell much on day one, just getting some safety reps out there. Didn't see him at cornerback at all, and we'll see if he gets in that gunner competition. He's one of the 18 guys that were kind of getting reps today in drills, so that'll have to play out. But there really isn't that sleeper name now that Trent Thompson's been cut and Jalen Elliott's been released as well.
Why do you think Justin Simmons still is out there unsigned?
It's a great question. What was he just named, like the 57th best player on the NFL top 100 today? I don't know. I can't, unless he's asking for the moon.
Unless he's asking for the moon or dealing with something. But you'd think all that would have been fleshed out by now.
You'd think. I mean, I imagine he'll get signed soon. Somebody's going to suffer an injury. Want to bring this guy in. It's going to be a big boost. Get Justin Simmons in late July. Sounds awesome. I don't know. The safety market's always been kind of weird. It's been kind of slow. So I couldn't tell you for sure, but it is strange.
Yeah, that's very strange at this point with him. Yeah, I'm not suggesting. I mean, obviously, the Steelers could sign him. I'd be absolutely on board with him. But I think an injury or something would have to happen for that to.
Maybe he's waiting. Maybe he just wants to wait for a safety to find the best spot possible for him.
Let's see. Kane 22 writes in, after listening to an O-line guru Duke Manny Weather interview where he talked about Kevin Dotson being played out of position and that he had told the Steelers that, do you think Mike Tomlin's biggest fault is being stubborn? Not just Dotson, but there have been others that they didn't seem to get the most out of. Also sticking with the game plan too long when matchups are getting exploited, sticking with Matt Canada when everybody knew he was bad, the quarterback situation last year. Kane, we kind of talked about this, I don't know, about 2 weeks ago when talking about Mike Tomlin's biggest faults or whatnot and all. And look, at it, he brought up Dotson. Kane, you're preaching to the choir when you talk about Kevin Dotson should have stayed on the right side. Now, was that just his decision? Was that the position coaches and all? I mean, the Bucs supposedly go to stop at Tomlin, so if Tomlin really wanted Dotson at right guard, Dotson would have been at right guard, right? Sure.
Had they wanted to, I know. Initially, you still had DeCastro when Dotson was brought in, and after DeCastro, his career was over. Instead of trying to move Dotson over, they just signed Trey Turner to play right guard instead. I mean,
did that really happen?
I know, it's hard to think about. I mean, if Dan Moore does not,
Lord, we're old. I'm old.
If Dan Moore does not start this year, there will be no returning starters from the 2022 Steelers offensive line, the group from 2 years ago. They'll all be different, a totally different group of 5, or 2021, maybe it is. I think one from 2022, which would be James Daniels. So point is, big changes for the offensive line. I share the concern about this team kind of putting these offensive linemen out of position, and they move them from their college spot and hope to get the same results. And that creates more uncertainty and risk and projection. And it's come back to bite them with Kendrick Green, with Kevin Dotson, Broderick Jones last year, Fautana this year. So that's fair. Is Tomlin stubborn overall?
Yeah, that's the core of really his. Like I said, he goes in here to talk about sticking with the game plan too long in Canada and things like that. Quarterback situation. The core of his question here, I think, is: do you think Mike Tomlin's biggest fault is being too stubborn?
I don't know. I'd have to really rack my brain about that. You can make the case and cite those examples. You can probably do that for a lot of coaches overall. We could probably point to times where he made changes and was light on his feet. That's always been his phrase: have a plan, but be light on your feet. I just would concentrate to the offensive line portion and just say that's been, I don't think, handled particularly well. How much does that apply outside of that? We could probably debate that for a long time.
Right. I mean, I understand the question and all, and I appreciate the examples that he's given in here. Look, I mean, Mike Tomlin's not perfect, by any stretch of the imagination. I don't know if I'd go as far as to say too stubborn, but I can see why the question is posed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, again, there are definitely times where you could say he's been stubborn. And when you're a head coach this long, you kind of have your ways in your system, and it's generally worked overall. That's why you're the longest tenured coach in the NFL. Did he stick with Mitch Trubisky for too long last year? Yeah, he did. He made the change, but only when it was the most obvious decision in the world. So there are examples of that. Canada, again, we can go down this rabbit hole for a long time. There's probably a valid critique to that. Is it his biggest flaw in whether examples of him making changes and being smart? Yes. But again, we could debate all that for a long time.
All right. I think that's got us caught up pretty much on some emails in the machine here. So with that, we will be back Friday night, wrapping up what Alex Kozora observed out at St. Vincent College in Latrobe for day 2 of training camp. And the next regular version of the Terrible Podcast will be back on Monday. Am I correct?
Yeah, and that'll be actually recorded on Monday morning because the team is off Monday. So they'll practice Friday, Saturday, Sunday, no pads, and then be off Monday, and the pads come on Tuesday, and the real fun starts then.
All right, so we will have special edition recaps of practices on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday until then. So in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button up right navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button. Follow the directions that way. We certainly do appreciate everybody reading the site and listening to the podcast. And until Friday night, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.